All right, Shalom. First and foremost, call halal yamla, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem HaRachakodash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone and rule well, as well as teach well. And peace and salutations to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And pretty much in this video, I'm going to be going into, in the Greek, uh, pretty much a lesson centered around the Greek concordance. All right, Strong's G 1290. All right, which is it's diaspora in the Greek. All right, diaspora, Strong's G 1290 diaspora. All right, and and pretty much what this concordance goes into, as it says in the biblical outline usage, it says the scattering, dispersion of Israelites dispersed among foreign nations, and then it says of the followers of Hamashiach scattered abroad among the Gentiles. All right, so it's basically this concordance, it goes into the dispersion or the scattering of Israelites among foreign nations. All right, even those, all right, Israelites, okay, who were followers of Mashiach Yahushua going back 2,000 years ago, that were scattered amongst the heathen, the Gentile nations. All right, and even when you go down, all the way down on this page, this concordance, Strong's G 1290, is found only in 3 scriptures throughout the entire Bible. All right, as you can see, the first one is John 7:35. Then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go? The he talking about Yahushua. When you're reading this account, Yahushua was pretty much having a back and forth with the particular Israelites that were of the circumcision. All right, and he said again, John 7:35. Then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go, that we should not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? And the dispersed that those Jews of the circumcision were referring to were Israelites. Okay, Israelites scattered among the Gentiles. All right, and it also appears in John 1:1, James, a servant of Yahweh and of the Lord Yahushua Mashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. Okay, the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. Okay, now obviously the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. All right, James wasn't writing his epistle to 12 tribes of Christians or 12 tribes of Christianity or nothing like that. All right, no, he was writing to Israelites. All right, amongst all 12 tribes that were scattered abroad amongst the heathen nations. And then, of course, 1 Peter 1:1, Peter, an apostle of Yahushua Mashiach, to the strangers scattered abroad, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. All right. And again, the apostle Peter wrote this epistle to the Israelites that were scattered amongst these respective regions. All right, including Galatia, as it says right here. So what does that small detail proves? That the book of Galatians, all right, the epistle of Galatians written by the apostle Paul, was written to the Israelites that were scattered in Galatia. All right, the Galatians, the church of the Galatians. Okay, now to go back to the definition of this concordance, all right, Strong's G 1290 diaspora. It goes into a scattering, dispersion of Israelites, dispersed among foreign nations, of the followers of Hamashiach, scattered abroad among the Gentiles. All right, and then going down to the main point, which is the main reason that I like to go into this concordance. All right, because anytime when you're on a block or whatnot, or even in a classroom setting or a conference setting among brethren, okay, anytime the topic of the Gentiles come up, in the heathen that's promised mercy and salvation in the scriptures, and the Gentiles that were promised mercy and salvation in the scriptures, the Gentiles that Paul will set out to go out and preach. Anytime topics like that come up, one of my main go-to moves whenever that topic comes up is going into this concordance right here. All right. And the main reason for that is because, as we just read, not only does it go into the Israelites being scattered or dispersed among the heathen nations, the foreign nations, but when you go down right here to the Strong's definition, it says dispersion. It says specially and concretely the converted Israelite resident in Gentile countries, which are scattered abroad. See that? Specially and concretely, okay, the converted Israelite resident in Gentile countries. All right, let's look up the word specially. All right, specially means for a special purpose. Okay, it says, and then it says deliberately, intentionally, on purpose, by design, willfully, knowingly, or consciously. All right. So specially, meaning purposely, or consciously, and concretely. Let's look up the word concretely. It says in a definitive or conclusive way. All right, a definitive or conclusive way. Okay, so specially and concretely, meaning consciously, knowingly, and definitively, the Gentiles that you read of in the New Testament and throughout prophecy as a whole, that Old and New Testament, that will promise mercy and salvation and redemption back to the Most High Yahweh. It's talking about the converted Israelite residents in the Gentile nations, all right, in the Gentile countries, scattered abroad. Okay, these are your Gentiles right here. This right here perfectly explains who the Gentiles are and were that the Apostle Paul and Barnabas were sent out to go out and teach and set up churches in the surrounding regions at that time. These are the Gentiles that Peter and the apostles wrote their epistles to, for salvation, preaching Yahushua, things like that. It's talking about Israelites, okay? Israelites that were scattered amongst the Gentiles, all right, that needed to be converted, okay? Because even, let's go down here for a second in the Thayer's lexicon, all right? It goes into a scattering, dispersion, show all. And then even right here, it says, it says, used of the Israelites dispersed among foreign nations, Deuteronomy 28 and 25, which says what? The Lord shall cause thee, this is going into the curses that will befall the Israelites, due to our disobedience, the disobedience of our forefathers, breaking that first covenant, okay? This is one of the curses right here. This is Deuteronomy 28, verse 25. The Lord Yahweh shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them. 7 going into perfection or completion. So, the Lord will cause us to flee a perfect or complete amount of ways from our enemies. All right, the heathen nations, the actual heathen nations. And it says, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. See that? So one of the curses, all right, one of the heavy curses that will befall our people due to disobedience and breaking that first covenant is that, the Lord would cast all 12 tribes of our people eventually out of the Holy Land, all right, and scatter us throughout all kingdoms, all the nations throughout the earth, all right. And when you go into chapters such as Daniel 7, Daniel the 7th chapter, which gives you the 4 beasts or the 4 empires that the Lord would raise up into power after the death of King Solomon. The first beast being the Syrian Babylonian Empire, the second beast being the Persian and Mede Empire, the third beast being the Greek Empire, and then the fourth beast being the ancient Western Roman Empire. All right, these were some of the four major kingdoms. All right, that the Lord was scattered us amongst. All right, throughout different parts of the earth. Okay, in which going back 2,000 years ago. All right, when John the Baptist and Yahushua and the 12 disciples were on the scene. Okay, when you read the New Testament, it was the ancient Western Roman Empire that was in power. At that time. All right, and during that time, 2,000 years ago, it was mainly the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi that were primarily in the Holy Land at that time, because the northern tribes, northern kingdoms, all right, led by the tribe of Ephraim, they pretty much had already been cast out of the Holy Land, going all the way back to the time of the Syrian Empire. All right, after the death of King Solomon. Okay, which you can find that history in 2 Kings, the 17th chapter, as well as in the Apocrypha, 2nd Ezra 13, the 13th chapter. So I can. What? All right. When you go into 2nd Ezra 13, you can read about the history of how the northern tribes were cast out of the land during the time of the Assyrian Empire. Okay, and then you can match that history up as well in the book of 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter, verses 40 to about verse 45 right here, where it goes into how the northern tribes eventually left Assyria and pretty much left the eastern world as a whole. All right, and came, and traveled over here to the west, which at that time was called Osiris. Which when you look it up, Osiris is identified as America when you do your Google research. All right, and as it says right here in verse 46, then dwelt they there until the latter time, and now when they shall begin to come. Yeah, so the northern tribes, all right, the so-called Latino native tribes, all right, they came over here after the Assyrian Empire, all right, and they're still on the side of the earth to this very day, here in the latter times, but that's all a part of the Lord scattering our people, going back to the curses. All right, Deuteronomy 28 and 25 again, the Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. All right, and as it also goes into in Deuteronomy 28 in verse 64, as we always bring out. All right, as we will be removed and scattered throughout all the kingdoms and the nations throughout the earth, even to this latter time. All right, Deuteronomy 28 verse 64, and the Lord Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people. Let's look up this word scattered. All right, Strong's H6327. Pawataza, and it means to scatter, be dispersed, to spread abroad. All right, to shatter, to dash to pieces. All right, yeah, to be scattered, to be spread abroad. All right, and as it says, looking at the Brown's Driver Briggs lexicon right here, it says right here, of Israel among nations. See that? Of Israel among nations. All right. So the Israelites will be scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, according to prophecy, as it says again, Deuteronomy 28 verse 64. And the Lord Yahweh shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Okay, and in this current day, the wood and stone can be associated with, Christianity slash Roman Catholicism and the religion of Islam. All right, because in Christianity and Roman Catholicism, all right, they worship, their idea of so-called Jesus Christ, which is what? A so-called white man being crucified on a cross, made out of wood, of course, okay, which is ultimately blasphemy against the true image of the begotten Son of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, all right, which is Yahweh Shai. That's the true name of the Messiah in the Bible, Yahweh Shai, not Jesus Christ, all right. So the wood would represent Christianity slash Roman Catholicism, and then the stone would represent the religion of Islam. Because over there in Saudi Arabia, all right, what do the Muslims worship? Okay, a stone, a giant black cubed stone, all right, a stone shaped into a cube called what? The Kaaba stone, all right, in which our apostles and our elders have done videos and lessons going into how the Kaaba stone ultimately goes into Queen of Heaven worship. All right, which you can find videos on that from our apostles and elders, and as well do research on it on your own. The Kaaba stone ultimately goes back to Queen of Heaven worship, and as well Christianity and Roman Catholicism. Because they worship the Queen of Heaven energy as well. Because in Christianity, the Christian Church and the Catholic Church, they also one of their main doctrines that they teach is the so-called virgin birth. Where they pretty much omit the fact that Yahweh Shai had a biological father, Joseph, when you read in the New Testament, and they teach that Yahweh Shai was born of the Holy Spirit in the sense of, Mary, the mother of Yahweh Shai, being pregnant by an angel, okay, rather than being pregnant by the physical seed of man, Joseph, okay, in which, that whole doctrine goes back to the Queen of Heaven worship, all right, goes back to the Tower of Babel, Nimrod, ancient Sumerian philosophies and whatnot, all right, but nonetheless, those are all topics for a whole nother lesson. But pretty much the main point in this verse is that the Lord will scatter us throughout the nations, okay, and as we will be scattered throughout these heathen nations, throughout secular history and whatnot, all right, our people would be enticed to worship the gods of these nations that they were scattered amongst, okay, and even up to the time 2,000 years ago when Yahweh Shai, John the Baptist, and the apostles were on the scene, okay, as the apostle Paul speaks of, 1 Corinthians 12:2, as our people will be scattered amongst these Gentile nations and worshiping their gods, worshiping their idols, okay, the apostle Paul says this, 1 Corinthians 12:2, ye know that ye were Gentiles carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led. So you see, so that's how our people, our forefathers, became likened unto Gentiles back in the ancient world. All right, they were scattered amongst the Gentile nations, amongst the heathen nations, and compelled to worship their gods, their idols, and follow their religions, and be raised up in their cultures and their customs, eating their foods, speaking their languages, wearing their clothes, and being uncircumcised. Okay, and as well raising up their children after them to live those same lifestyles, that Gentile heathenistic lifestyle. Okay, raised up serving idols. All right. So these things, these points in the scriptures explains who the Gentiles were that Paul and Barnabas and the apostles were teaching in the New Testament. Okay, it's not talking about actual heathen nations. No, it's talking about Israelites scattered amongst the Gentiles, okay, raised up worshiping their idols and being likened to Gentiles, okay, being likened to Gentiles by the Jews that were of the circumcision, that were in the Holy Land, that were raised up in the law, okay, who basically looked down upon them because they were raised up in Gentile customs, all right. So Uh, Going back to the concordance, Strong's G 1290 in the Thayer's Greek lexicon, it says, "Use of the Israelites dispersed among foreign nations." All right, and we just read Deuteronomy 28 and 25, and then it lists Deuteronomy 30 and 4 says, if if any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy power gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. Yep, and that's gonna happen in these latter days when the Lord Yahweh sends his begotten son Yahweh Shai back to deliver the elect, all right, out of Babylon the Great here in America, as well as throughout the four corners or the four winds of the earth, like Yahweh Shai speaks of in Matthew 24. Okay, and then he goes into especially of their Babylonian exile. Okay, the Babylonian exile, which our people being exiled, goes it starts all the way back to the Assyrian and as well as Babylonian captivities. Okay, which again you can read about their history starting off in 2 Kings the 17th chapter when the northern tribes were removed first, and then eventually as you continue reading the following chapters in 2 Kings, then eventually the Lord cast out the southern tribes, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. You know, brought us into captivity in ancient Babylon, and then of course eventually after that Babylonian captivity, we were Judah, Benjamin, and Levi were allowed to come back into the Holy Land. And rebuild the temple, the second temple, during the time of Zerubbabel and Haggai. All right, and from that period, the Persian and Mede captivity, where eventually we came back to the Holy Land in Jerusalem and rebuilt the temple and set up the priesthood and everything, the Sanhedrin. All right, then eventually the Greeks came into power, and Hellenized our people. Okay, during the time of Antiochus Epiphanes. All right, and when you read in the Maccabees, let's go to Second Maccabees. All right, and for now I'm gonna just go to Second Maccabees 6 just to kind of get an abridged history of what the Greeks and Antiochus Epiphanes were doing to our forefathers during the Greek Empire, because of course we can read in First Maccabees, the first 2 or 3 chapters, which kind of goes more into details on what was going on with our people during the Greeks. But for now, for time's sake, I'll just go straight to Second Maccabees, the 6th chapter, and I'm gonna start from the top. It says, "Not long after this, the king sent an old man of Athens." All right, who's the king at this time? Antiochus Epiphanes, also known as Antiochus the Fourth of the Seleucid kingdom. All right, and it says he sent an old man of Athens. What is Athens? The capital of Greece. All right, to compel the Jews to depart from the laws of their fathers, and not to live after the laws of God. Yeah, to basically Hellenize them, take them away from the laws and the commandments, the high holy days, the Sabbaths. All right, circumcision. Okay, and basically Hellenize them. Compel them to live after the customs and the manners of the Greeks, as well as raise their children up in those same customs. It says, and to pollute also the temple of Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter Olympus. Basically set up idols in the temple, and that in Garizim of Jupiter, the defender of strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in the place. And so they basically wanted us to set up idols throughout our cities, as well as in the temple itself. And it says, the coming in of this mischief was sore and grievous to the people, for the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places. Yeah, they basically started bringing in loose women, having orgies in the temple, fornicating, okay, and all kinds of adultery going on within the temple. All right, even in the holy place, as it just read, defiling the holy of holies at that time. And it says, and besides that, brought in things that were not lawful. Yeah, idols, okay, unclean foods, swine. And then it says, the altar also was filled with profane things, which the law forbiddeth. Yeah, they made us sacrifice, unclean animals upon the altar. Okay, and it says, verse 6, neither was it lawful for a man to keep Sabbath days or ancient feast days, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew. You see that? So the Greeks during the time of Antiochus Epiphanes Hellenized our people so hard and so strict to where they basically made it illegal. They got to a point to where it was illegal for our forefathers, all right, to even call themselves Jews. Judah, Benjamin, Levi, or to call themselves, Yasha'Allah, period. All right, so therefore, by default, what do you think they started calling themselves? Greeks, Hellenists, all right? They were forced to call themselves Greeks. And so, understanding that history, when you go into the New Testament, that explains who the Greeks are that Paul and Barnabas were sent out to teach. Okay, those were Israelites. Okay, scattered amongst regions that were conquered by the Greeks. Okay, where you had Greek culture flourishing, the Greek language. All right, they were teaching Israelites that were raised up in those cultures and those customs. You see, so going back to Strong G 1290, it goes into right here, unto those dispersed among the Greeks. See that? Unto those dispersed among the Greeks, Hellenized Israelites. All right. So that's pretty much, it for this, the Thayer's lexicon. Yeah, it goes into, scattered Israelites. Okay, dispersed Israelites, even amongst the Greeks. All right, and even as a matter of fact, going back to the Strong's definition, it says, specially and concretely, the converted Israelite resident in Gentile countries. Okay, converted. Let's look up the word converted. They ain't really giving me much. Let's look up the word convert or converted in the Etam Online. Okay, convert. Alright, so let's look up the word convert on the Etam Online. This is the verb definition of the word convert. Okay, because what is a verb? It's the name of an action, such as run, jump, swim, walk. A verb, right? So what is the action of convert? The verb convert, according to etamonline.com, it says a change or turn from one religion to another, especially to so-called Christianity. Then it goes into the old French, to turn around, to turn towards, change, transform, convert, win over. All right. All right, yeah. So to basically, as it went into, to change or turn from one religion, or one belief to another, right? Then it goes into to turn around, turn towards, change, transform. Okay, so the Israelite residents that were scattered amongst the Gentile countries going back 2,000 years ago, for them to come to the faith of the Heavenly Father Yahweh through Yahweh Shai, via the preaching of Paul and Barnabas and the apostles, what did they have to convert from exactly to come into the faith of Yahweh Shai? What did they need to be converted from? Well, they needed to be converted from those customs and those cultures and those idols of the Gentiles that they were raised up in. You see? That's what they needed to be converted from. Okay, those idols of the Gentiles. All right, like we read in 1 Corinthians 12:2 again. Ye know, the Apostle Paul preaching to the writing to the Israelites that were in Corinth, right? He says again, 1 Corinthians 12:2, ye know that ye were Gentiles carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led. So those Israelite Gentiles, they were raised up in idols, all right? The idols of the Gentiles and the cultures and the customs of the Gentiles. And then eventually they were converted out of those Gentile ways, okay, to the faith of Yahushua. Brought back to their Israelite heritage, their Israelite culture, brought back to the laws and the commandments, okay, all through what? Faith in Yahushua. They were converted from those idols, you see, that made them likened unto Gentiles. Let's see. Carried away. What does that mean?
Strong's G 520. Apago. Apago.
All right, which means to lead away, especially of those who are led off to trial, prison, or punishment. Okay. Yeah, so they were led away. All right, they were led away astray through those idols that they were raised up in. All right, they basically became like prisoners of hope to those idols that they were serving and raised up into to worship. Talking about the Israelite Gentiles, that is. All right. Let's see. Let's read that in the NLT real quick. Let's see what that says. This is matter of fact, I read in the NIV. This 1 Corinthians 12 verse 2 in the NIV. It says, you know that when you were pagans, somehow or other, you were influenced and led astray to mute idols. Yeah, and that was the thing. They were influenced by those idols. Okay, and that influence, showed by their lifestyles, their them being uncircumcised, them speaking the languages of the heathen, okay, thinking like heathens, basically being like heathens, but they were still Israelites. All right, they were still Israelites of the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, so pretty much Strong's G 1290 tells you exactly who those Gentiles were that Paul and Barnabas were sent out to teach. Okay, converted Israelites that were scattered amongst the Gentile countries. All right, not actual heathen, not actual, not Edomites, not Moabites, not Hamites, Ishmaelites. Okay, not any heathen nations. It was just Israelites that were scattered amongst the heathen. All right. As a matter of fact, let's go to Ephesians 2. Ephesians 2 and 11. It's the Apostle Paul writing to the Israelites, all right, Israelite Gentiles that were scattered amongst Ephesus, all right, the church of Ephesus. He says, Ephesians 2 verse 11, wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, okay, Gentiles in the flesh, carried away by dumb idols, right, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands. Yeah, those Israelite Gentiles, they were looked down upon and called uncircumcised by the Jews that were raised up in the circumcision, the Jews that were raised up in the law. Okay, because those Israelite Gentiles, they were uncircumcised. A lot of them were uncircumcised physically, but more importantly, they were uncircumcised mentally and spiritually. Okay, worshiping idols, following the customs and the religions of the Gentiles. All right, they were looked at as uncircumcised, both in a physical sense as well as in a spiritual sense. But it says, verse 12, that at that time ye were without Hamashiach, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel. All right, we know aliens goes into strangers. All right, in the commonwealth of Israel, what does the commonwealth mean?
Strong's G 4174. Palitaya. Palitaya.
All right, commonwealth means the administration of civil affairs, state or commonwealth, and then it goes into citizenship, the rights of a citizen. Okay, the rights of a citizen. All right, so when it says the commonwealth of Israel, talking about citizenship within the actual physical land of Israel. All right, in the Gentiles, okay, they were commonwealth, all right, strangers from the physical land of Israel because of what? Because they were scattered, they were dispersed amongst the Gentile nations, the heathen nations, right? Says again, just as we read in the curses in Deuteronomy 28, says again, Ephesians 2 and 12, that at that time you were without Hamashiach, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without Yahweh in the world. All right, and what is the covenants of promise? All right, the promise that was made to our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right, in which I did a lesson the other day, going into how that promise is only made to the physical seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right, so knowing that, all right, the fact that these Gentiles in the New Testament, Paul was preaching to them, preaching Yahweh Shai to them, and preaching that that they have a shot to enter back into that promise, proves what? Okay, that those Gentiles were the physical seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Israelites. All right, scattered amongst the Gentiles. It says again, and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope, and without Yahweh in the world. Yeah, without the Most High in the world, because what? They were worshiping those idols. It says, but now in Hamashiach Yahushai, ye who sometimes were far off, scattered, right, are made nigh by the blood of Hamashiach. Yeah. So those Gentiles, okay, since they couldn't basically get back to the Father through the laws because they were raised up, without the law, their only shot at getting back with the Father and being having access back to those promises was it's through faith in Yahweh Shai, as well as the Jews that were of the circumcision as well, because here it is, the Jews that were of the circumcision, they were raised up in the law and they were strict in the law. Okay, but guess what? Yahweh Shai proved that that they weren't righteous in the law and that they weren't fully keeping the law. So therefore, what? That's why the Apostle Paul speaks about in his various epistles, that there's no difference between Jew or Greek or Jew and Gentile, because at the end of the day, all of us Israelites need Yahweh Shai. Okay, we have no access back to the Father through being perfect in the law, or the Levitical priesthood, or the high priesthood after the order of Aaron, or anything that's pertaining to that first covenant. No, our only access and shot back to get righteous with the Father is through faith in Hamashiach Yahushai, through this grace period. Okay, being perfect in faith, keeping the law to the best of our ability, but at the same time, knowing that and understanding that even when we come short of the law here and there, we might break the Sabbath or whatever the case may be. Well, guess what? We have the blood of Hamashiach Yahushai to cover that sin. All right, be forgiven of that sin. You see? And the Apostle Paul was making that understood to the Gentiles as well. All right, which again were Israelite foreigners, Israelites, Israelites that were residents among the Gentile nations that needed to be converted from those idols that they were raised up in to the faith of the Heavenly Father Yahweh through Hamashiach Yahushai. You see? Alright, so let me get up Isaiah 11. Isaiah 11, and just get a few more scriptures and then end it off. This is Isaiah 11, verse 10. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse. All right, what does that root of Jesse represent? Yahweh Shai. Okay, Jesse was the father of King David. And of course, King David was the father of King Solomon. All right, and when you go into Matthew, the first chapter, it gives you the whole entire ancestry of Yahweh Shai, going all the way back to Adam. All right, Adam, Seth, Noah, Arphaxad, Eber, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Judah. Okay, Boaz, who's the father of Jesse right here, and then Jesse, the father of King David, the father of Solomon, through Solomon, eventually came Joseph, who was the biological father of Yahweh Shai. Matthew, the first chapter, gives you that entire ancestry of Yahweh Shai. All right, so this root of Jesse that is speaking of in Isaiah 11 and 10 is talking about Yahweh Shai, and it says, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. An ensign being what? A sign or a banner signifying what? To go in a particular way, or or a sign of a way back, okay, to a particular destination, and Yahweh Shai was set up as an ensign to show our people the way back to the Father, okay, and it says, to it, all right, to it, the ensign, Yahweh Shai, shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. Yeah, and as we continue reading down, we're going to see who these Gentiles are referring to. All right. So to it, the ensign, Yahweh Shai, shall the Gentiles seek, which is literally what was going on all throughout the New Testament, right? So verse 11, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, all right, of his people, not all people, but his people, okay, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt and from Pathros and from Cush, from Elam, from Shinar and from Hamath and from the isles of the sea. And this represents different regions of the earth where the Lord's people will be scattered amongst, even in his latter days. All right, and then as it goes into verse 12, and he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. These are your Gentiles right here once again. All right, the outcasts of Israel and the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Okay, all 12 tribes. Okay, these are the Gentiles that the Lord, sent Paul and Barnabas to go out and teach. All right, and these are the Gentiles that the Lord is coming back to save in these latter days. The elect, okay, the remnant of the nation of Israel, all 12 tribes that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Okay, they will be converted in these latter days. All right, as a matter of fact, Scripture speaks of that in Isaiah the first chapter. So let's see. Yep, this Isaiah chapter 1 and 27. It says, Zion shall be redeemed with judgment, and her converts with righteousness. And of course, who is Zion representing? Talking about the Israelites. Okay, the elect of the nation of Israel. Those of us that's of the hopeful elect in these latter days, they will fear Yahweh by Shema Shai. Okay, and as well preach this gospel. Stand upon our feet and preach this everlasting gospel. Okay. So all these things, these points that I brought out in the scriptures were all pretty much to prove that the Gentiles that you read of throughout the New Testament and throughout prophecy as a whole, that will promise salvation and mercy and all these things, is talking about Israelites. all right, dispersed among the foreign nations, all right, that resided amongst the Gentile countries that needed to be converted, okay, needed to be changed, needed to be transformed, okay, to a new man, a new creature, all right, to the image of Yahweh Shemal Shai through the preaching of Paul and Barnabas and the apostles, all right. So those are your Gentiles right there. All right, it's not talking about actual heathen nations. All right, no, it's talking about Israelites. Okay, so I'm pretty much ended off on there. So Lord willing, this video is edifying, and until next time, shalom.